Welcome to the Produce Industry Podcast, your weekly download on current events, trends, market reports, and community discussions. Join us each week from Tampa, Florida, as we cover all aspects of the produce supply chain industry. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, my boy, the voice of the produce industry, Patrick Kelly.
Hey, produce people, welcome back to the Produce Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kelly, also known as Lil Citrus, coming to you live from the Ag Life Media Studios, brought to you by the Produce Industry Network, everyone. Again, as always, I'm super excited to be here. I appreciate you listening week in, week out, and allowing me to be a voice for the produce and supply chain industry. And again, this is where we bring you people, companies, ideas, and everything that's around the global produce and supply chain industry. Okay. And before we jump into today's conversation, we do have a couple announcements, right? As always, what's happening across the industry, or better yet, is where will we be? Because it is trade show season, everyone. And I feel like that's like an understatement because there's trade shows every single week in the industry. But right now is really the busiest. So as we look at the schedule, as it being Monday the 6th, we've got the annual Florida Farm to School Conference. That's April 7th, 8th, and 9th. I will be going one of these days. I'm not set up as a podcast. I'm not set up as a media company. I purchased a ticket, and I actually look forward to going and just understanding what the Florida Farm to School Conference actually offers. So really excited to be going to a new conference there. And then the following week, April 13th and the 14th, we got ProAct, their annual conference right here in Orlando, Florida. Myself and Hans Finzel will be speaking at the conference about the millennial boom, the 5 generations that encapsulate the workforce today. And then within the same week, we're flying to San Antonio for Viva Fresh 2026. San Antonio is one of my favorite cities, and our guest today will tell you why once we get him on. He definitely knows. And then after that, we got a week break for, I call it Earth Day on April 22nd. And then the following week, we're traveling back up to Canada for CPMA 2026 in Toronto. Really excited for some of our sponsors up there. We're going to be doing interviews. We're going to be interviewing people like Rhizopack, Kopke, Peak of the Market, and more. So stay tuned. Even Ron with CPMA, and just going to be having some fun. Really excited, as you can tell. The word excited is in my vocabulary because that's traditionally what I am all the time when I get to learn, eat new produce, and be with great people. So that's kind of our April. Not going to get into May because there's just so much that's always going on, and we will get to May in the upcoming weeks, everyone. So don't you worry. Now, what about today's episode? How are we going to set up today's episode? What are we thinking about today's episode, and why, right, are we thinking about some of these things? Because what's happening across North America right now, and even the globe, we're seeing a lot of pressure really building. Okay. And where is it building? Growers, packers, shippers, they're all feeling the squeeze. No pun intended, everyone. Costs are rising. You might have seen this in your pocketbook already with food and with fuel. So margins are tightening. There's a ripple effect that is hitting every corner of the industry right now. Seriously. And you're probably thinking to yourself already, if you're listening, like, oh, I know a couple. Well, here's things that we've been hearing. Fuel costs are creeping up. They could be with anywhere between 1% and 6%. We've seen it in our pocketbooks at the gas, I would say, station. Food grade wax is increasing anywhere from 3 to 9%. And corrugated materials are jumping up anywhere from 3 to 5%. Now, a lot of these numbers and adjustments might be different for you, and that depends on your volume, how you negotiate, or any of those factors in between. So if you do have other numbers, I'd love to hear from them. Shoot me a text or a message on LinkedIn. Let me know some of those costs that you're seeing out there. These are real conversations that are already happening that could actually affect the 2026, 2027 operations. So that is something that we really need to keep an eye on. So, and that's what the episode is really about today. We're going to break it down while talking to one of my featured guests. Okay. We'll talk about what's driving the increase. What does that do to impacting operations, specifically a California citrus operations? And what does this mean for the future of our industry as we head into the new season? Because now we're in the middle of a season now with very slim margins. And now we're being told that our margins are going to get slimmer. How do we go about adjusting that? Because as consumers ourselves, we also have to bite the bullet. If we increase costs on the producing side, we have to pay for it on the final end product. So joining me today, longtime friend of the show, longtime sponsor of the show, and someone who lives this every single day. Someone I respect, someone I mutually have a great relationship with. I always say we can fight, we can argue, we can have fun. And the core is we understand each other and understand what we're trying to do for the produce and supply chain industry, everyone. So Michael Chavez of Golden Star Citrus, Flavor Wave Fresh is going to be on the line with us. And he'll be on right after the break. And we'll talk about some of those, I would say, pricing models or pressures and breakdowns and how it relates to us at this time. So everyone, we're going to take a quick break and we will be right back.
We know it's not easy getting your apples to peak quality and keeping them there on that long journey to retail and beyond. So AgroFresh is here with the integrated solutions to help you meet those challenges. We're in the orchard, where Harvista helps control ripening to boost quality and yield and simplify your harvest time. In storage, our SmartFresh technology secures that fresh-picked quality to maintain it all the way to the consumer's home. We're in the pack house too, with advanced solutions like Control Tech for handling coatings, fungicides, and a lot more. During shipping, you can even deploy SmartFresh Smart Tabs in containers, or right in the box with SmartFresh Inbox. Through it all, our FreshCloud digital platform gives you real-time quality insights, keeping you in control, right up to retail. With AgroFresh, it all works together and goes with you all the way. Get it going now at agrofresh.com.
Everyone, it's always great to hear from Dynamite sponsors creating dynamite content for the produce and supply chain industry, everyone. Now, if you're just joining, you're about to get the heart, you're about to get the meat, you're about to get it all. Let's go ahead and welcome Michael Chavez to the show, everyone. Michael.
Hey, Patrick. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate, yeah, there we go.
Hey. Let it happen. Let it happen. It's all for you, buddy.
I'll take it, man. I'll take it. I know right now, especially with everything you mentioned, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of applause out there. I think there's just definitely didn't come on to complain at all. Just talk about what's going on in the industry, not even just citrus, just general supply chain shifts that we're seeing. So I think you did a great job with the introduction, and yeah, happy to share, at least some of my experience and what I'm seeing so far. And yeah, let's just get into it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. And I'm glad you're here. You've been with us since the early days. Like I said, if we always talk about this. You remember the day I called you and I was like, hey man, what do you think about starting a podcast? And it's like, everybody was like, oh, I don't know. Right. And it was kind of like, hey, let's do this and see what happens. And again, if you look at the first, 5 interviews, right, it's crazy compared to it's April 1st, just 2 days ago, with 6 years, over 700 episodes. But one thing I can tell you, you've always brought a really grounded, real world perspective from the actual, I call it the small grower, packer, shipper, because you're not this huge conglomerate, right? You're not this billion-dollar company like some of these other, labels are that you're actually competing with. So I think today's topic is one of the things that every grower, packer, and shipper across North America is hitting, but I think it impacts that small grower, packer, shipper, which really California was started off of, right? So that's what's crazy is these small rising costs, right? And I would say, as dramatic as it sounds small, it's really big in how it's impacting us. You know what I mean?
100%. You hit the nail on the head there, and I think the situation we're in now, it's really just getting information like this out on the podcast, on Ag Life Media, just really getting this out and opening up the conversation, because I know in my position, with the situation, the geopolitical situation, and some of the challenges we're seeing, we're not just seeing normal cost inflation. We're really seeing, affecting small guys like me, small grower packer shippers like me, as well as, the larger volume handlers, not even just in citrus. You look at everything that requires, any kind of farming input, post harvest applications, fungicides, box costs, logistics. What we're actually watching now is a structural shift in this supply chain. Fuel, packaging, raw materials, everything is moving right now at the same time. So this puts any operator, who's dealing with vendors, who's dealing with these costs, really in a compressed squeeze right now of how do we manage this? How do we change what we're doing, as operators? And then how do we adapt to the change, whether it's internal execution, utilizing maybe more technology. That's been something that even at Golden Star, we've upgraded a lot of machinery and technology to increase our effectiveness as a packer, to translate those costs not only to the end user, some of the retailers and wholesalers we work with, but also for the grower, to control those costs, to try and make sure that when we have these structural shifts in the industry, we're ahead of the curve and we're already implementing technology and efficiencies that are going to relay, maybe a better price cost for the end user. Which myself, I go into the grocery store, I buy fresh produce all the time. I love visiting my local Save Mart, and they've got a great produce section. And also dealing with growers, hey, how do we control pack costs in between? There's only so much we can control. So I think that's the position that we're in, is just really looking at adapting to this structural shift of costs in our supply chain.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And let's start with, one of those, which I know we'll start with the one that impacts like you and me the most, which is fuel, right? Like, one thing we can say is that logistics is a very big key to the entire supply chain, right? And as much as we hate them calling on us all the time, we definitely need trucks to move our product. Transportation, literally, we got to say it, is like the backbone of our industry. And when fuel jumps, right, everything kind of moves, right? Because we've seen like, oh, the fuel surcharge will go up, but the rate stays the same, right? So whether it's moving fruit from the field to the packing house, which is it in your case, right? Or even shipping across the country, which is still your case in a different way, fuel is going to touch every step of the way. And not only that, as you've seen, I don't know about you because I'm not in California, but I paid $5.09 for gas yesterday right here in Florida. So I can't imagine what gas in California is right now. $8?
My day to day, between Golden Star, Flavor Wave, I've moved into that juice space, servicing farmers markets separately. And then labor contracting side, working with contractors, working with harvest crews, that requires logistics. This morning, just driving in, of course, I'm glancing because I got to take off to the Bay Area this afternoon. I drive my, diesel truck, my smaller diesel truck, not the one that you're probably
I
thinking
know
of.
you're, and yeah, the
That
white,
that
the
guy,
white
that
one.
guy's staying parked. Yeah, the white one's going out. The black one, the Batmobile there. Yeah, that one's been parked with these
It's a
prices.
transformer.
Oh, we're over $6 right now for regular gas, and then diesel. I mean, I'm gonna be $7 give or take here in Visalia. I get
Ooh,
into the Bay Area. We're probably looking, if I got to put some
eight.
gas, it's gonna be $8 to $9.
I was
That's
gonna
what I'm
say if you
guessing.
pull off like between the airport, anywhere near an airport, anywhere near an off ramp is gonna be $8, $9, right? And that's what happened to me. I was actually coming off of I-4 and I had to get gas, and my car takes the premium 93 too. So I was just like, this is not fun, man. This is like $60 to fill up my car that normally cost me $30 to fill up. You know what I mean? It's like it's doubling. So we're seeing transportation costs on all sides, and that affects your per bin rate, right? That affects everything.
Absolutely.
It trickles down the line.
Absolutely. Yeah, that cost per bid, we'll just start from square one from the field. You got to haul the product over to a pack house. From there, you're going to run your product down the line. We've got post harvest application, we've got fungicide. Some vendors have already announced that they're, single digit to low end double digit increases here starting, around April 1 to April 15. Definitely not picking on anyone because it's going to affect everyone. Anyone who's, picking, packing citrus, which we're, 3/4 through the season, probably 80% through the season, at least with our operation, at least for oranges, but you've got cherry guys that are going to start up. They wash cherries, they use fungicide, they're just getting started with their season. and they're going to have a cost increase in multiple areas. Pulp and paper, with boxes, that started with COVID. Limitations on workforce, really drove up prices, and we've continued to see this shift of increase after increase. So as an operator, you look at this, whether it's me selling a box of citrus to you or me selling a pint of Flavor Wave orange juice to you at a farmer's market, where do I go from there? How do I not necessarily pass this cost along, but operate efficiently to try and reduce and mute that cost as much as possible? So you still want to buy that box of oranges. You're still able to make that purchase. You're still able to make that purchase of fresh juice, that you probably are used to and you want in your daily diet or your weekly diet. It creates a big squeeze here, not only for grower, packer, shippers, not only for the growers, not, for the retailers. It's really all of us. We're all consumers at the end of the day. So, where do we go from here, man? This is an interesting time, but I mean, it's definitely not the first challenge in the produce supply chain. It's not the first challenge I've seen in my career, but where do we go from here, man? I think that's the real question. Is we'll just talk in layman's terms. Where do we go from here, and how do we work through this?
Well, I think communication too is obviously the biggest thing, because I mean, if you're going through, we talked about transportation, you kind of touched on the packing house. You've got things like corrugated that's going up. I feel like corrugated goes up every single year, right? It really does. And now you've got food grade wax going up. I mean, we talked about that, like within 3 to 9%. This is all stuff that is required to have, right? Like we have to ship packages, and those packages have to have food grade wax on them. And all those costs are hitting us up, right? So it's like, how do the increases stack up? Because if you look at all these little percentages, that could increase our box price by $2 a box, $3 a box, right? And why producers really can't always pass that downstream? Because right now we've seen the biggest hike in consumer pricing for us, with a bag of oranges being $8.99 when traditionally oranges were $4.99 a bag, right? So we're seeing pressure on FOB pricing. We're going to see it even more. That's going to create a challenge to really stay competitive too, because we, or anybody as a small grower, packer, shipper, and even if you're a larger organization, you can't just lose money over and over and over because, oh, well, that's just what it is. No, I mean, something has to be done. I mean, if the government requires us to have food grade wax on there, then there shouldn't be, there would be a levy on food grade wax pricing so the grower is still able to be profitable, right? If there's things like fair trade to monitor pricing, why isn't that with all other products too? Because that's going to hit your pocketbook pretty hard, Mike. And Golden Star having to navigate that back to your farm labor company, that's tough, man.
Very, very challenging. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's going to be about innovation, and innovation isn't always going and buying, the newest machine that removes the human element from the process in a pack house. That's not, hey, let's go find the next technology that's going to pick the oranges and we remove the human element. A lot of what produce does is highly, highly necessary for human element to be involved, at least in my opinion. There's areas where we can develop technology, but I think about, our sales and marketing. There's a lot of technology out there. Back 20 years ago, you saw a lot of grower, packer, shippers with 10 to 15 salespeople. Is that going to change in the future? I know right now, getting away from just the produce section or produce discussion, AI, how many jobs is AI going to replace in the next year, 5 years, 10 years? That is a bit of a scary thought, but innovation is coming whether we like it or not, just like change is inevitable. So how do we navigate through this and take advantage and innovate maybe some technology, internal practices? I know, with Golden Star, our mindset is going to be, companies that are going to survive the next 24 months are the ones that are going to operate lean, move fast to adopt innovation, for every operation's differently, innovate, move fast, and then have really your relationships where you can actually go to maybe just a retailer and talk to them and say, hey, this is the push and pull we're seeing. This is not singular to my company. This is an industry shift. Having this type of conversation and maybe telling them, hey, maybe you want to check this podcast out because we have been talking about, these shifts in the industry that are something that's going to be across the board. We're not immune to it. The next competitor is not immune to it. The next industry is not immune to it. Just getting away from produce, Amazon, just think about that cost model. I've got packages come into my house, every now and then, just like I'm sure you do. that cost model is going to change. So how is this going to really affect, the global supply chain? Really, that's really the question. And I think that's the challenge right now for any operator in any industry.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Everyone, before we get more into on how the industry can navigate through this, let's take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll kind of finish out, wrap up the episode, talk about really the impact and what we can do to look ahead, and really, how to communicate together. So we will be right back.
120 years ago, in Groningen, the Netherlands, a small produce business began, trading fresh local fruits. By the 1930s, the Vandenberg family moved to Rotterdam, Europe's burgeoning fruit hub. But when the 1940s brought turmoil, they fled to America, rebuilding their legacy in fresh produce. In 1958, Jack Vandenberg became a trailblazer, importing fresh Chilean fruit to the US, opening doors to global flavors. Today, that spirit of growth and innovation continues, with sustainable packaging, carbon footprint tracking, and the finest fruit varieties. We're redefining freshness for the future. Family, fresh, innovation, celebrating a legacy 120 years in the making. This is Jack Vandenberg.
Welcome back, everyone. It's always great to hear from Dynamite sponsors creating dynamite content for the produce and supply chain industry, everyone. I got to tell you, I'm going to be at Viva here pretty soon. I'm really excited. Juicy the Mango is going to be at the Continental Fresh booth number 1101. You got to come check it out. I met Juicy this last year when I was in the Dominican Republic. They told me Juicy was coming to the show, and I was pretty excited. So again, when you're looking for a sweet, juicy flavor with purpose, the Mexican Mango program at Continental Fresh delivers more than just premium fruit, everyone. Every mango packed under the Water for All label helps fund clean water projects in underdeserved and underserviced communities. It's produce the impact over and over again. When you choose the Water for All mangoes, you're not just stocking shelves, you're changing lives. So join us this season and bring purpose to the produce aisle, everyone. Love it. Those Continental Fresh mangoes. And let's get Michael Chavez back on. Mike.
Water for All, man. I got to back that. I've supported that for a few years now. Great cause. So yeah, just plugging that a little bit, but yeah, back to it, man. It's just, really just looking at, this overall conversation, Patrick, and I'm always happy to get your input. I know you and I have our own conversations, calls, emails, texts, etc. And just real-time updates from me all the time, just highlighting, hey, these are some of the challenges we're seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And that's what we try to focus on too, right? Is trying to see and understand, because what producers should expect next, right? As we look ahead, as these costs increase, they're not going to go away. If anything, they're going to become the new baseline, right? And what does that mean? It means we do have to adapt. We're going to have to adapt, right? And we can't just say this is just what it is. So I would say producers have to look at maybe some higher operational costs and start communicating with their customer. Continued pressure on packaging and materials always, especially with packaging coming from overseas, right? We know there's U.S. producers, but we know a lot of this material comes from overseas. Chemicals from the wax companies we know come from overseas as well, and here locally. So we're going to see a more volatile market, right? All the way through fuel, packaging, and food grade wax, and probably tighter margins for growers. So it's going to be tough. And then again, like you brought up AI and now efficiency and technology. I think that, Robert Austin says it best. It was a quote that he took from somebody else, but it was, AI is not going to replace your job. The person who learns AI is going to replace your job, because AI is never, and we talked about this the other day, there's never going to be, who edits the video still at my office? I do, because the human element of the creativity, right? You can do something in AI, but it won't do it exactly what you want, right, Mike? It won't do exactly the human touch. You know what Will Smith said in iRobot. Come on. We all know this, right? So what do you think? What should consumers, or sorry, no, what do customers expect from us? So if they're a retailer, a wholesaler, what are you seeing out there that they could expect?
Well, let's not live in fear. Produce has been, since the dawn of time. Let's not live in fear of technology or AI. As far as consumers go, and this is one of the next points I wanted to hit was, on passing these costs along. I know we're not going to be able to pass 100% of these costs right out the gate. I'm not adjusting my pricing from last week to this week based on, the single digit to upper double digit increases that we're going to face. So how do we incorporate these cost increases without passing 100% onto the customer? We're going to have to be very strategic as an industry and as a individual producer on figuring out ways to be innovative and efficient so
Oh
we
yeah.
don't break that demand curve. That's a big one. We can't just stop the global dispersion of citrus because of our cost model. So we're going to have to find a new way, the old COVID term, the new normal for our industry.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and that's going to be a tough one too to navigate through, right? I mean, these are things that so much pressure is going to be on us. That what's going to happen to promotional pricing? What about transparency from suppliers? You know how many people have told me this year that prices went up, or sorry, what was that last year with the tariffs? People
Yep.
took up pricing that didn't even do imports, Mike. How is that? I guess I just have a heart, dude. I can't do that to people. Like I heard from people, like, what do you mean you don't even import? Yeah, but the costs of everything are going up and we're getting charged. Right, but if we don't buy an imported mango from you, why are we getting charged on other products? Well, we import mangoes, you just don't buy them from us. That's that's insane. Truly,
Uh,
truly.
and who knows, there's always two sides to every story. Maybe
An
there's
interesting
something
story.
there, but I like to keep it pretty simple. And I think, moving forward in this new normal, this new cost model, not only for retailers but also with growers. I'm a grower myself as well. How do we operate, efficiently? How do we survive and keep thriving? And I think, with these cost increase, the gap between the efficient operators and operations and everyone else is about to widen really quickly. Innovation is what I would touch on, and I know at Golden Star, we're going to be focused on control, controlling costs where we can,
Yep.
controlling that execution, and then of course your relationships. How do you talk
Agreed.
to not only your director of produce, but also maybe a grower that you work with and have worked with for years in explaining these costs. And it's going to take communication, and I'm sure it's kind of delivering, I wouldn't say bad news, but just this new shift of we're making every effort, and it's going to be some tough conversations, but it's also the reality, when it's out there in the media, when we see it at the gas pump. They're not immune to it. They're
That's
seeing
true.
it too. Like, oh my goodness, I used to go fill my grocery basket with a $200 bill, and be good for the week.
Not
Now,
anymore.
yeah, not anymore. That Costco trip, man, we laugh about it all the time. I'll also walk in the office and say, "Yep, Costco got me yesterday." I used to feel like when I would spend two, three hundred
They
dollars
got me.
there, it got me some stuff. Now I'm like, yeah, that's a $500-600 bill now with two kids, who like to have their specialty Costco snacks, and of course, a lot of things make it
They
into
sell
that
Dubai
cart that,
chocolate at Costco now. This is like in bags, like, so it's horrible
yeah.
now. Like, there's
Well, and the cost is one thing, but look at how spoiled we are as consumers. Dubai chocolate, 15-20 dollars a bar.
so
We've
good.
got access to so many luxury items. And I think as a consumer, I'm definitely going to look at what I purchase and what I allow to fall into that cart, whether it's me putting it in myself, which I am guilty of,
Oh,
or
100%.
maybe one of my daughters, throwing something in there that caught their eye and they really want. So it's really just being a knowledgeable consumer and watching our budgets, and just no different. I'm going to run my household budget the same way I have to run my packing house budget. Let's just run it lean. Maybe we don't need that Dubai chocolate. Maybe we can get away with a Hershey's bar this week, which is a couple bucks versus the $20 bar. So,
Right?
it's just making smarter, educated decisions. Just the new normal.
I
We'll keep
know,
dropping
man.
that. So,
Well, and that's the hard part is like you said it, it's the new normal, and that's what we have to understand. And we talked about housing, we talked about our kids, we talked about a lot of those things. But I think that at the end of all this is right as we look at 2026, 2027. right? We're going to see more automation. We're going to see data-driven decisions, more collaboration across the supply chain. The one thing I can tell you is, and you said it too, is to be able to survive and thrive is we need to innovate, we need to communicate, and we need to stay flexible, man. So, Mike, it's always great having you on the show. Everyone, if you don't know, Golden Star Citrus, Michael Chavez. Check out some of the other podcasts that we've actually talked about. Golden Star, we've talked about Flavor Wave and some of his companies, and a lot of Mike's been on the show, 10 plus times just as a subject matter expert. So, Mike, great to have you. It's great to have you on the show, co-hosting with me, talking about fresh produce and just talking about what we do every day, man. So, really appreciate you coming on and being a part of the Produce Industry Podcast today.
Thank you, Patrick. We appreciate you. I know I appreciate you personally, professionally, and yeah, man, this kind of communication, these conversations are crucial. I hope anyone who hears this does not take this as a complaint from a grower shipper at all or an operator. It's just, we're addressing what's happening in the world, and I appreciate, everything that you do, talking about these things. So thank you.
And that is the hard part, right? Is that we just think like when we get on here, oh, we're just complaining. One thing I can tell you, this podcast outlet, it's not about just like journalism, right, Mike? I had to have this conversation with someone the other day. It's not just about spitting facts. No one wants to just hear relevant facts. They want to hear the stories in those facts. They want to hear opinions. That's what a podcast is. It's your own personal radio station, right? And I think that that's where we're able to bring this to a new level, is that I'm not just going to spit facts over and over and over at you without telling you a part of the story, because I might be able to spit a fact to Mike right now. Mike can take that as a business decision and make money off of it, which maybe I never could have. So if I just read the facts and read relevant information, it might not work out in the way that you want it to. So everyone, thank you so much. Keep listening, keep communicating, keep driving the fresh produce industry forward. Because Mike, one thing we said in 2020 was, how do we build the industry together? And that's what it's about. Am I right?
Absolutely. You've seen that in my career and what we've done together and some of the things I've ventured into. I keep taking at bats, not only with the grower packer shipper model with Golden Star. Look at Flavor Wave. It's been a mobile app company. Now it's, moved
A
into some
juice
other
company.
spaces, juice company. We've got ties to labor contracting. So I mean, you just see that, and I think that's the old school grit, and that's probably the farmer in me. We are very persistent in making our efforts. Like I said, I keep taking at bats, and we just got to keep on pushing, man. I love this industry, and I care for everyone involved. So yeah, it's just stay working hard, everyone. That's just all we can do at this point, and be strategic and be intentional.
Yes, sir. So everyone, we'll see you in the fields and on the horizon.